This is Bowling Green tight end Harold Fannin Jr.
You talk about breaking the mold, and nobody breaks the mold more than Harold Fannin. We're talking about averaging 120 yards per game. Actually led college football, not tight ends, college football entirely in all the receiving numbers. And it's not just that he did it against the Bowling Green schedule. Against Penn State, 137 yards. Texas A&M, 145 yards. How about the bowl game, last game of his career? 213 yards. He did this as a 20-year-old. He played safety in high school. He's brand new to the position, putting up this amount of production, and his feet are aimed this way. And none of it makes sense, but when you put up this much production, you have my interest.
Yeah, this is going to make for one of the most fun conversations in the class. Let's say that Harold Fannin is 6'3", 241 pounds, right? That's the start of it. To me, he's so fascinating because of what you discussed of the production and how the production happened. Like, there are going to be moments once he reaches the NFL that he might be a fan base's favorite player on the team because of the flashes, the crazy plays that he does make with the ball in his hands. But the big question we are going to try to talk through in this discussion is that if he will be one of those true like focal point members of an NFL offense, or because of his size, how NFL teams discuss that, interpret it, or just how he plays the tight end position in general, is that going to divert him into more of like a tertiary receiving option on an NFL team?
Yeah, that's going to be the big debate. He played a bunch of snaps at Bowling Green. I think for my money, he actually held his own as a blocker. I think that he's like very powerful, like pound for pound wise. Now, at the end of the day, we're talking about mass matters in the NFL, and he does not have standard size. But I think a lot of it, we talked about this with other tight ends, is these coordinators are just like not down blocking against defensive ends with their tight ends. Like, you can survive in the NFL right now by just
we've
kind
got
of
Isaiah Oliver and Chris Manhertz to do that.
yeah,
Instead.
we got a couple. Yeah, exactly. And those guys get paid
Josh
good
Oliver,
money.
excuse me.
Yeah, to let Fannin go be kind of a menace in terms of mismatches. I think that he can block linebacker, safeties, he's good on the move, all that type of stuff. So I'm kind of a little bit more optimistic on him actually getting like real NFL snaps here. He's not going to be your classic inline wide tight end, but I think that he's so good as a slot receiver that I think that he has a chance to actually go compete against the real slot wide receivers in the NFL. And I think that's kind of the bar we're talking about here. He just would like run by guys. I thought his hands were excellent. He's always catching the ball with his hands. There's no wasted movement after the catch as well. And then I thought he was a pretty good route runner. And I didn't know that he was a safety in high school until Dane Brugler just put that out. Like, to me, like, this is like a fascinating storyline, and we're getting somebody that's only going to be 21 years old his entire rookie season.
Let's stick to the positives. Like you said, to me, his ball tracking is fantastic. He had a back shoulder in isolation versus Kent State. I believe he was charged by PFF with 24 tight window targets this past year, and he might have caught like 16 of those, just doing a really good job with that. He's a really strong zone route runner. I felt that like he read the spacing and the leverage of all the players around him. I will say how he plays and how he runs and how he moves broke my brain a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
He looks like the most tight hip tight end you've ever seen in your life. Like, even his strides don't even look like runs. It kind of looks like a dude ice skating as quickly as possible, like not even a full stride out. And then there are times on like these outside breaking routes where he almost completely goes into a stop and then like makes his move to the outside. But in a straight line, the guy has juice, like real juice. And I don't think he's going to run by, NFL corners and NFL safeties, but he definitely ran by college football and even SEC corners and safeties. And then when he has the ball in his hands, guys just bounce off of him. I mean, I think he was charged with 34 forced missed tackles this year. So there is something to like this compact size that made him very difficult to tackle. And it led to truly highlight reel plays, like you said, on the way to 117 receptions for over 1,500 yards.
Yeah, I think what makes him so good is that he's just pound for pound strong. I think that's what it comes down to. He's like very, to me, explosive. He's not agile by any means, but the hands, the explosiveness, and then also just after the catch, just kind of shedding these guys. To me, I think that's what makes him so unique. And we'll see if this is actually going to translate. But we've had some interesting tight ends over the years that all of a sudden like walk into huge production. Like Jordan Reed is one of them. Jonnu Smith currently. Chigga Kwanko is like kind of like at least Fannin could be Chigga Kwanko. I'm pretty sure about that. But yeah, it's an interesting profile. But I think there was just enough reps where just like the tackle breaking, in terms of like the burst, and on top of, like you said, like the ball tracking over the middle. He took some big hits to really rack up some of that production, especially against Penn State and Texas A&M. And it was just interesting that everyone knew that Harold Fannin was coming to town, and nobody was
Right.
stopping him. It was like 17 catches, 13 catches. It wasn't just like a couple of explosive plays here and there, like consistently just getting wide open. I think the zone coverage feel has to play into that.
I actually thought Bowling Green's offense was really well constructed. And you mentioned prior to recording that their former head coach is now on the offensive staff of the Philadelphia Eagles. And so making that jump tells you something about how this group, and it's not to the same styling as Penn State's offense, but like this offense was built around Harold Fannin at the exact same time in terms of he was their focal point of their team. Now let's get into the comparison aspect because he is not small. Like a lot of the conversation seems to think that he is, I don't know, a Trey Burton
Right.
level of size who was 224 pounds entering the NFL as like this Doran Dickerson area too. He's got heft to him again at 6'3, 241 pounds, albeit that's 14th percentile weight. But I looked at a whole bunch of tight ends that have been productive on kind of different tiers and different levels and kind of bucketed them. And so I think he's going to fall into one of these three buckets. Okay.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, I'll run through those. First, it's the guys that have been better ideas, especially in the fantasy football landscape, than they have been in practice once given a bigger role. If you remember, Ladarius Green was one of these
Oh
guys
yeah.
at 238 pounds. Gerald Everett has had like multiple stops where he's been, the tight end one, 239 pounds. And Chigo Quanquo, people tend to think it's going to be a Chico Quanquo year, and then he goes out there and gets 500 receiving yards. Okay. Then it's more of a pure receiving type, but he sticks on the field in a bunch of situations. But you kind of have to work the offensive scheme around his strengths.
Yep.
Jordan Reed, for example, 236 pounds, even Evan Ingram entering the league at 234. So that's the second bucket. And then the third is there's been a bunch of guys that were drafted early and stay on the field as a team's tight end one that you might not think that they're close to this size. Sam Laporta, 6'3 and a half, 245 pounds. Trey McBride, 6'3 and a half, 246 pounds. Brock Bowers, 243 pounds. So, like, I don't know which one of those he is going to be. I think he will end up being someone like that. I can't say that I see an every down player at this moment in that Laporta, McBride, Brock Bowers tier, because that's like a mentality and just like how they ferociously, I think, attack every single area of the game. Plus, they're with really, really good coordinators that isolated where their strengths are. This is why it's kind of breaking my brain talking about him because I really want to root for him and see where he goes to a nice landing spot.
I thought he did have some tenacity out there. I think like
I'm not
there's a
saying he doesn't. I just don't
right.
think he's Trey McBride level of it.
Right. I think on all those guys that you mentioned, there's a second tight end that does all of the heavy lifting that unlocks those guys to be the players that they are. Now, obviously, there's only a couple of those guys in the league, and like Fannin being that takes a little bit of imagination. But at the same time, we're talking about one of the rarest production profiles ever. It's not just like the raw stats, like in terms of like the percentage of the receiving production at Bowling Green, it's like 50%, 53% of the receiving yards went to him. We're talking about complete outlier production. So I'm kind of more in the second, maybe into the first high end bucket with Fannin. I have no idea what the NFL is going to do with him in terms of draft capital here. I put him just inside my second round, late second round. Hopefully the Eagles go if they end up trading Dallas Goddard here. But this could also be somebody that we refresh and he's the 100th overall pick. And then all of a sudden now we're closer to like the Chiga Quanquos here. So I don't know. My baseline comp for him is Jordan Reed, who was not going to be for everybody. But man, that dude racked up a bunch of production over the middle, just being a really zone defender. I think being more physical than his body kind of allowed it. And obviously his injuries derailed that career. So maybe there's could be something to say about somebody being small but that productive and may not last. But I'm hopeful there's enough unique offensive coordinators that want to give this guy a chance because we're talking about a true outlier. And if you're looking at like the 75th overall players around him, it's like a bunch of just like the most average looking third round picks. And like he's the one that looks different than all of them. And I kind of gravitate to those type of guys.
Yeah, I guess in that bucket I was talking about, like Brock Bowers, primary pass catcher for his team. Trey McBride is that in a whole
Yeah.
bunch of reads. Even Sam Laporta is like that in a whole bunch of reads. I don't know if, again, Harold Fannin is going to reach that in my brain,
The
but he's
agility is
also
different than, yeah,
right.
his
I,
agility is just down.
yes, he's just super tight hip to me, like
Yeah.
super tight in his
Right.
movements. As you know, the most unflexible person in the world is sitting here talking to a microphone.
Same.
Yeah, this is just he's fun, man. Like 56 inline or attached receptions or targets, I should say, 43 in the slot, 40 on the outside. I do want to ask you this question, tongue in cheek. Do his 30 screen receptions matter or not?
Oh, they definitely matter. They definitely matter. I'm holding it against him. In my notes, 37 receptions behind the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
Yeah, it just
Good. His matter.
it's
Got it.
yeah, it's one of those things where yards after the catch wise, there was a couple times down the field where like these defenders did not know what was coming with him, and Fannin like somehow would just like either run right by him or just give him a little bit of a stiff arm or bounce off of those awkward legs. None of it made sense. Like you're almost like questioning like what you're watching when you're watching Fannin
Right.
tape.
Now, he does look like at times, especially against many of the teams of competition that he played, the best athlete on the field. And we do have athletic testing with him, and he's definitely not that. He's
Right.
an average to above average athlete. You know, three cone was really good in the 84th percentile, but then he ran like a 4.71 with a 1.6610. His shuttle's in the 50th percentile. His jumps are in the 50th percentile. So like he
Even
is
that
going to
doesn't
have
make
to be
sense.
well, I kind of think it does. He's
Well, like the
super
three
tight.
cone, but the three cones in the 84th percentile, but he's super tight. Like
But
square
that's
that.
like that's what you're talking about with the first, second step juice that's getting up the field, you
Okay.
know? He looked like, again, the most athletic player on the field often. He's not going to be that in the NFL. And so then do some of his negatives or shortcomings, are they more pronounced when
Hmm.
they're just better athletes on the field that you're going up against? Even though,
Hmm.
again, I'm with you that he did it in some really difficult games or his most difficult ones against Penn State and against
Yeah.
Texas A&M. He's just going to be best on a team that has a second tight end on it to do all the dirty work stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, most frequently, those are like some of the best teams in the league. And there he will shine. I just don't know if he goes to like a bad offense if we're going to be hearing a lot about Harold Fannin Jr.
Right. Yeah, for sure. He ends up being my tight end 4. Right in there's a couple other guys right on his tail. I have him as my 54th overall player. I'm drawn to the uniqueness. I'm just drawn to the production and the fact that he did it against two elite defenses in A&M and Penn State. And then he just like didn't drop many passes. I thought he
Nope.
was really reliable out there. And like the fact that even though we think he's tight, he's still 84th percentile on the three cones. Like there's something about this guy's movements that maybe he's like hypnotizing out there trying to tackle this guy. So there's maybe some hidden superpower. And I would want my team to draft him because I think it'll be fun.
Yeah. He is grouped with a whole bunch of tight end fours to me that those guys are all different. And we'll have videos on them like Terrence Ferguson. If you want a true inline size and like power blocker, that's your guy. Elijah Arroyo. If you want more of like a downfield seam stretcher that's
Yep.
super explosive for big plays down the field, that's your guy. And then you have this type that we just outlined in Harold Fannin Jr. And so it's difficult for me to like rank those three
Right.
individually because they
Right.
do three different things
Yeah.
for an NFL offense.
Yeah. Completely agree.
I'm hoping he's not Chig Okonkwo, and no offense to Chig, people love him, but it is quite funny that you love him, yet there's moments where like the hype for Chig frustrates you.
Well, Chigaquonka, I looked at his college stats
They
and
were nothing.
they were nothing. Like that's the thing. It's like a
Correct.
lot of these like little motion guys aren't, averaging 50 yards against
Yeah,
the best competition that they faced.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, and if he can be Jordan Reed in the NFL, that would be something special.
Hell yeah.
That would really be something special. Who was one of the most, but he was more fluid. You know, it's so it breaks my brain. It breaks
I
my
know.
brain talking
Just
about Harold
draft
Fannin.
him.
All right. Well, then their brains are going to be broken. That does it for us. Again, go and watch another prospect profile on the channel. We've got tons of tight ends: Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Mason Taylor, and a whole bunch of other running backs, wide receivers, and quarterbacks. So hit that subscribe button, leave a thumbs up, and we'll see you in the next video.